What's up guys, this is Nico from Limitless, and today we're taking a look at a different Zoroark version. A version that's been pretty under the radar recently because it hasn't seen any relevant play at any of the standard tournaments we had with Ultra Prism. And yeah, other than a top 4 in the special event at Ecuador, but that was kind of a different deck because it had more of a Glaceon focus instead of a Zoroark focus. So it's still a little bit different, so yeah. But let's take a look at the list first. So we have 4 Zoroark GX. Trade ability allows you to, once during your turn, discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards. That's up to as many times as you have Zoroark GX into play, so you can use it multiple times, which is pretty strong to draw cards in addition to your supporter card. And his attack is also pretty decent. It's 20 damage for each of your Pokemon in play. In standard, that means it's a maximum of 120 because we don't have Skyfield. But yeah, 120 is pretty good in the current format because you don't have to go for the 2-shot in for the 1-shot in these kind of decks. You're 2-shotting your opponent is fine, and you will see why at a later part of the like when we get to the supporter cards. But yeah, for now we have 4 Zoroark GX and obviously 4 Zoroark as well. Zoroark, not relevant, doesn't have any like relevant attacks and stuff, but you could technically ram, but I mean, if you ram, then you're probably a very bad spot at the game. And yeah, his partner in crime for this deck is gonna be Glaceon GX with the Freezing Gaze ability. Something important to note is that yeah, as long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX in play in their hand and in their discard pile have no abilities except for Freezing Gaze. That means you still get to use your GX and EX abilities even if Glaceon is active. So it's not like Garbodor, which prevents both players from using any abilities. It's just for your opponent, and also it's just for the GX and EX. It's pretty similar to Trevenant in Expanded, which only prevents your opponent from playing item cards. So yeah, once you have it active, you don't get disrupted at all, but your opponent won't be able to use any abilities. And yeah, his attacks are also pretty good. We have Frost Bullet for 1 water and 2 colorless. Does 90 damage to the active Pokemon and 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is pretty nice to set up chaos. In addition to your 2 hits that you're taking on the active usually. And then his GX attack, which is the only GX attack you could use in this deck because you don't play any Darkness energies for Zoroark and also no Psychic energies for Lele, is Polar Speed GX, same cost as his first attack. Does 50 damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So once you snipe 30 onto a bench like usually 210 GX, you with Choice Band can take the knockout, or in general if you snipe 30 onto something that's 180 for example, you can just take the knockout with the GX attack. So it's pretty nice to yeah, take knockouts without like letting your opponent know too much that you're taking the knockout, because usually it's like you deal 100 damage to a Gardevoir, for example, your opponent makes potions, and then you have to deal 100 again and hope that he doesn't have max potion. But now your opponent would have to heal for just 30 damage, which usually isn't worth. So that's a pretty nice way to just set up chaos. Yeah, the evolution we're using are 3 Eevees in addition to our 2 Glaceons. With Energy Evolution, when we attach a basic energy to Eevee from our hand, we can search our deck for a Pokemon that evolves from Eevee. That's the same type as the energy, so if you attach a water energy to Eevee, you can evolve into Glaceon even on your first turn. So if you happen to go first, attach a water energy and get a Glaceon, you can disrupt your opponent very early on, but it's not too likely because yeah, we're not playing too much water energy, so next we have 1 Tapu Koko. Flying Flip does 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and it also has free retreat, which is pretty nice with cards like Guzma to always have something for free retreat. So that's why he's in there. Next up we have Mew EX, which is pretty important against Buzzwole because it allows you to use copy your Righteous Beating attack from Zoroark and yeah, basically deal the same attack but as Psychic to one of your opponent's Buzzwoles, knock it out. Can also be used against Gallade, but depends. Sometimes you don't really want to use it because Gardevoirs can easily just take the revenge knockout. And last but not least, for the Pokemon lineup, we have 3 Tapu Leles has been the staple ever since it got released, other in decks like Greninja, but even these decks started playing Lele, so yeah, it's pretty good. And yeah, Wonder Tag, when you play this Pokemon on your bench, you can search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. And Energy Drive is also a decent attack. It does 20 for each energy attached to both Pokemon, but sadly doesn't apply weakness or resistance. Otherwise, you would just be able to use Lele against Buzzwole, but that would be way too broken. Yeah. And next up, supporter cards. We have Classic in a Zoroark deck. We have 3 Bridget. Allows you to search your deck for 1 basic Pokemon EX or 3 basic Pokemon. The EX part is pretty important to note in this deck because that actually doesn't allow you to search multiple Zoroarks, for example, and a Mew. But you could technically only search Mew, so that's something to keep in mind. Then we have 4 Guzmas. Card is super strong. You can switch, you can target your opponent's bench. So 4 of them. As for our draw supporter cards, we have 3N. Has also been a staple ever since it got released. Both players shuffle their hand into your deck, draw as many cards as they have prizes. Can be used to just refresh your hand in an early game, or also to disrupt your opponent in the late game, especially in addition to Glaceon, because that prevents them from like using Lele, or if you play against other Zoroark decks, using the Zoroark. Then we have 1 Sycamore. It's just in there so you can use it early. In the late game you usually won't use it because you have hands thanks to trade with a lot of good cards, because you trade away your bad cards. So you don't really want to Sycamore because you would Sycamore a lot of good cards. But in the early game it's pretty nice to draw a completely fresh hand. Then we have 1 Cynthia. Just basically an early game end, but only for yourself. So it's pretty good. Similar to Professor Oak's New Theory, which was around at the AGSS era, so yeah, a reprint of a card that has been used a lot in the past, so it's going to be used a lot now, pretty much. And last but not least, we have our utility supporters in Acerola, which allows you to heal, which is one of the reasons why it's completely fine to take 2 shots on your opponent, because if they can't one-shot you, you just Acerola and you have a fresh Zoroark again. And our last supporter card is gonna be Mellow, a card that's very good in Zoroark decks because it allows you to put 2 cards on top of your deck, and yeah, if you trade, you draw 2 cards, so you can basically put the 2 cards on top that you want to draw, and that's always something very good. Then for our item cards, we have for Ultra Ball, it's very standard. Search your deck for Pokemon, discard 2 cards. Puzzle of Time. Also a staple in Zoroark decks. If you play 2 of them, it allows you to get back any cards, and thanks to Zoroark, it's pretty easy to get 2 puzzle into your hand because you just trade away bad cards and draw into more good cards, so you will just end up with better odds to just draw into your Puzzle of Time. Then we have 3 Field Blower against stuff like Garbodor, against stuff like Fury Belts, against Perilous City. It's just, the card is just very good in the current format, and there's no reason to just play 3, especially in Zoroark. Even if you don't need it in a matchup, you just trade them away. Then we have 2 Evo Soda, which is just more Pokemon search to get out more Zoroarks quicklier. So yeah, we have 2 of them. Then we have 2 Enhanced Hammer. In addition to Glaceon, just some disruption. It's especially important in Zoroark Mirrors, especially in this deck, because you actually prevent your opponent from trading while also taking away their energies. Because usually in Zoroark Mirrors, you just hammer away your opponent's energy and he will just trade into another one and then just go from there. But here you can actually disrupt your opponent very hard by taking down his DCEs. And last but not least, we have 2 Aqua Patch. 2 Aqua Patch is completely fine because you can mellow for it, you can puzzle it back, and you just won't need it as much because you're not playing a Glaceon focused deck, so you're not like, oh, I need to draw into my Aqua Patch every turn, I need to set up a new Glaceon every turn. No, you're still playing a Zoroark deck, and you can still perfectly go for Zoroark as well. Then we have 2 tools, which are 2 Choice Bands and 1 Floatstone, in case our Coco is just not enough as free retreat, or we just want to retreat early on into a Glaceon, for example. Having the Floatstone and Choice Band obviously to deal more damage. And for the energies, we have 4 DC, Classic, in basically every deck that has a colorless attacker or can use double colors energy, you will play 4 because the card is just super good. And last but not least, you have 3 water energies, which might seem very low, especially if you take a look at past decks that used stuff like Aqua Patch or just like decks, similar decks in general. For example, you have you had the Lapras deck that played 15 energies, for example. You had you have the standard Glaceon deck which plays like 8 water energies or even more depending on what your side attacker is. If you only play Glaceon, you probably even have 12 to 30 and maybe even more energies in your deck. And yeah, stuff like Volcanion that wants to attach energies plays 16, 17 for example, or Hokiave. And Darkrai also used to play way more than only 3 energies. So yeah, it seems like a very low count, but it's perfectly fine because you can search for it with Mellow. You can reattach it with Aqua Patch if you need it. And yeah, in general, your focus is not that much on Glaceon. And thanks to Zoroark, when you need Glaceon, you will often just be able to set it up because you have so much consistency. And that's what makes the deck so strong. But I mean, I could sit here the entire day and tell you about why the deck is good and what the deck's strengths are. But I guess it's a lot easier to just show you how the deck performs. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the games. And yeah, we'll take some impressions from them. So it looks like we're up against Magnezone, Zoroark. Should be a little bit tougher than most Zoroark decks because they actually have metal attackers, but in general, unless he gets a super strong start and we for some reason can't get out Glaceon, you'll be able to deal with his deck pretty good. It's definitely Magnezone and I saw Darkness, so it's definitely Magnezone Zoroark. Unfortunately, he's going first. And actually, probably doesn't even need Bridge, judging from how many basics he has. Oh, so many Magnemites already. Yeah, I will just be going for Bridget this turn. All I can do, basically. Important stuff is all in there. So I'm just going to grab 2 Zoros and an Eevee. And then it's back to him. Maybe one time the opponent won't have Zoroark any stage 2 immediately. Okay, ends. Let's see if we can draw something very good, and we don't really. But at least it's a float zone. That's something. This one says he can't get damage, right? Yes. So I'm just gonna Cynthia, hope for some Zoroarks, or maybe at least a water energy or something. Oh, that's pretty good. So Field Blower is pretty nice against the stadium, so I'd rather keep them. But I guess I can afford to lose one Guzma. Might still trade away the Eevee on the next trade, but most likely not. Yeah, I'm just gonna trade away the Eevee now. Okay, more Zoroarks. No Zoroark. So I guess 2 Zoroarks are priced. I mean, at least I can grab Glaceon for my deck now, so I have something to Ultra Ball next turn. Oh, actually, quite some Zoroarks priced. Yeah, I definitely have to retreat into Glaceon. Would have been nice to at least attach 1 energy to it, but guess we just have to pray he doesn't have Floatstone or way too many energies and stuff. Probably gonna grab a Coco next turn from my deck. Maybe Mellow, depending on what he does, like Lele for Mellow, but he has a Guzma right away. Guess he wants to trade. As well as, 2 trades, as well as taking the knockout. It's pretty unlikely that he misses the energy. Field blower. Yeah, he has the energy. But him attaching a DC actually means I can hit with Zoroark next turn, and unless he gets a Magnezone, he still won't be able to use his attack for 220. Of course, next card would have been the water energy. Yeah, but now we don't need it anymore. Getting a Zoroark seems pretty good for Ace Roller and stuff. Also, once I get to drop prices, I will most likely, well, not most likely, but it's pretty likely that I get a Zoroark from my prices, so might as well just have no Zoro already. We got the DCE, so that's pretty good. I don't want to trade the EV, or do... Yeah, I guess I'm fine with trading the EV. So just swinging with Zoroark and attaching the water energy back to Glaceon. So we swing for 100, so Glaceon's take is fine, so we don't need to choice band. Actually pretty decent turn, unless he gets Magnezone and destroys us completely. I mean, even if he gets Magnezone, his Duskmane Necrozma will get knocked out unless he has Max Potion as well. So it's actually a pretty decent spot to be in, because if I get to knock out the Duskmane Necrozma next turn and he doesn't have more of them, then he's left with only Zoroark, and that's where Glaceon gets pretty powerful. He has another Duskmane Necrozma. That we can Field Blower, and he already discarded one earlier. That's probably going to be an Ultra Ball for Magnezone. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an Ultra Ball for Magnezone. He has 2 Rare Candies in hand, 100%. Otherwise he wouldn't have discarded his Rare Candy. As I said. But at least I get rid of a Stadium, so... means he at least doesn't get back his energies, and he also won't be able to trade next turn. because I have Glaceon. Hopefully he doesn't have a supporter. Because if he stays at a hand size like that, it's very unlikely that he will be able to do much next turn. And he actually, oh, he actually has to Claw Smash as well. So now I will get a pretty good turn. Let's go ahead and trade first. Yeah, we don't need Bridget. I mean, since I'm not going to play any other supporter anyways, I might as well just go for the AC Roller this turn. Keeping my DCE and keeping my Zoroark healthy, since I can evolve into a different one. Also allows me to trade once more. It's also always nice. Aqua Patch will probably not be used anymore this game. That's pretty good. Question is, do I go for the Magnezone? I mean, I guess 30 damage on 30 damage on Necrozma is quite good, because then I can Guzma next turn and knock it out. So for this turn I will still go for the Necrozma with the damage. Because once I get rid of all his Necrozmas, the game gets a lot easier, because then he can't even high roll that easily. Because now it's just, okay, he draws a lot of energies, he can still use Necrozma. But if he doesn't have Necrozmas on board anymore, then it's just, okay, you can't use Necrozma because you don't have any more, so you have to draw into Necrozma and energies and stuff. Okay, I guess he will get back one of them. So I might end up actually going for Magnezone next turn instead. Maybe I should have sniped on Magnezone actually. Okay, he has to puzzle for one. And I can get rid of another stadium next turn. That means 3 stadiums are gone and at least 1 puzzle is gone. I think I will definitely go for Magnezone, because it's pretty likely that he put a supporter up there. And if he puts a supporter up there, it's likely not going to be a Guzma. And he needs Guzma to switch his Magnezone, otherwise it will just get knocked out. So let's see. What are we trading today? E-Hammer might be relevant, might be very relevant actually, once he has to use his Zoroarks instead of his metal attackers. Kinda want to keep the Layla. I want to keep all of these cards. I guess Water Energy is one of the cards I can afford the most to discard. Like draw into another one, so I guess I just use the different one to retreat. Still Guzma up the Magnezone though. Field blow his stadium. So it doesn't matter if we snipe 30 here. 30 goes to 160. I guess. And then we can, if he doesn't have all his switching cards and stuff, we can just GX it next turn. Or like, oh yeah, GX it next turn. Then it's still fine to let the Magnezone survive. Oh, he actually had to put a letter up there. Yeah, he definitely thought that I would just knock out his Magnemite, so he just went for the energies to be able to retreat into his Necrozma. The worst play he can do now is to actually attach his 2 energies to the bench Necrozma. If he actually does it, then he just loses if I Guzma it up and GX knock out it. He attaches one to them. Still, I will definitely GX this turn. And I also get a Coco for free retreat. That's very nice. I don't want to trade because I will need most of these cards and I'm also pretty low on cards anyways. So we definitely go for the Necrozma now. Take the KO. Now he's at a pretty tough spot. Yeah, he just passes, so that's basically a scoop, because now let's see, do I have puzzles left? Yeah, I have plenty of puzzles left, so now how many? He's at 160, so I can't take the knockout now, so I will just trade into puzzle, Guzma Magnezone, knockout Magnezone, because then he can't, then it's 100% impossible for him to set up his Necrozma next turn, and then the turn after I can just Guzma something else, so I will just get back 2 Guzmas now. Even attach an energy to Lele just as a backup attacker for the worst case. And just set him up for a knockout with basically everything. Can knock it out with Zoroark, knock it out with Lele probably even. I mean, he knows I have Guzma in hand, so yeah, he will just Righteous Beating now. Melo doesn't help him anymore, so that's gonna be a win. Unless for some reason my computer turns off or PTCGO decides to kick me out of the game. Now he's just stalling. I mean, he knows I took back Guzma, so even if I can't knock out his Necrozma, I can just knock out his Magnemite. But of course, we will go for the Necrozma as the last prize. And yeah, that's how you beat Magnezone Zoroark, by just not letting them use Zoroark and being a bad Magnezone deck. Pretty sure that's gonna be Zoropod. Might obviously also be Zoroark Decidueye, but I mean, it's definitely most likely to face Zoropod when it's Zoroark and Grass. So let's see. Once he figured out who goes first. Ah, Eevee and the Float Zone, that's okay. Obviously Bridget in hand as well. Might actually, depending on what he does, use the Float Zone to retreat into Coco, depending on what he does. And then use Flying Flip. He actually plays the Lurantis version. Not quite sure how much HP Lurantis has. Actually, pretty decently important, because thanks to Lurantis, he can use Goldspot's GX attack to knock out Glaceon. So I might want to deal with Lurantis first. Or at least try to deal with it. If he doesn't attach an energy to his active, then we'll definitely go for Coco. Yeah, I will definitely go for Coco this turn, especially now that I managed to top deck another Zoroark. So if Coco is in the deck, I will use it, and it is. Multiple Zoroarks, we have Glaceon in there. Only one, unfortunately. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, puzzles are all there. One budget is priced. One DC is priced. Nothing too worrying. So I will just go for the Cocoa Spread this turn. Because his play last turn tells me that he only, like, he doesn't have any energies. So he has to draw into his attacker and Guzma. Or into Floatstone maybe. Oh, it actually only has 100. That's pretty nice. So now it's set up for a Glaceon knockout. Obviously, I knew that. Sure. The Floatstone doesn't matter. It was only important for the first turn. Okay, he's gonna Sycamore. Sycamore's away in Acerola. So he... Unless he draws into Floatstone, which is pretty unlikely, he won't be able to attack. So I might be able to use Zoroark next turn. And he actually plays the non. Okay. Interesting. But that also gets way less annoying once Glaceon is gone. But it's still able to deal 150. Oh, 180. 180 is fine. 180 is not a knockout. I will actually have to discard a puzzle here, because I want to get as many Zoroarks into play as possible this turn. Because as I said, my main goal for this turn is to get rid of his Lurantis. And actually get quite some Zoroarks this turn. Glaceon isn't too important right now. But I will definitely keep the Mellow in hand, if it's possible. And we'll also keep the Ultra Ball. So that maybe I can still Ultra Ball for Glaceon this turn. I will just cut Sycamore, because now I have 3 Zoroark in play. So Sycamore won't be too relevant anymore. Now it would have been nice to have a Water Energy in discard, but unfortunately no. The question is, do I just go ahead and discard Aqua Patch? I guess it's fine. And I do want my DC, but I don't get my DC. So I will actually... I will put Glaceon into play, that's for sure. I might actually... That seems actually pretty interesting to... I will keep E-Hammer, because if he powers up his Golden Spot next turn... I don't really want to discard double Acerola, but I also want to... I guess I have to discard Aqua Patch now. He has something stuck in the active that's not really too helpful for him. So what I'm gonna do now, because Cocoa Spread for one more round... it actually does matter a little bit. Let's check his discard. He's Sycamore and didn't put any Zoroark into play. So he will most likely have to draw into it, and if he retreats for DC, then he still can't attack. So one more Cocoa Spread is fine. Also sets up more stuff, I guess. Like for example, Limitless only down to 130. So that's what I said, he attaches in a DCE. So unless he has Guzma as well, he won't be able to switch or retreat and take a knockout. So I can just... He will definitely Ultra Ball for Zoroark and then Sycamore. But that still means if he doesn't join to Floatstone, I can just E-Hammer and put up Glaceon next turn. And he discards the DC as well. And the Guzma. Said to not use the Guzma. Two puzzles gone. 2 DC will be gone next turn. And he actually... That's very lucky actually. To just casually join to the Floatstone. Is it always minus 30? It's always minus 30. So so I won't even be able to take a knockout next turn. Zoroark onto it. So I will have to pull up Glaceon and attach an energy and hope that he doesn't knock it out. Wait, he doesn't even take a knockout, right? Yeah, it's only 80. Coco's not a GX or EX. Discards another puzzle, so every DCE that's gone from now on will be gone. That's very important, actually. And I will try to abuse it as much as possible. I will E-Hammer for sure, because I won't be able to take a knockout this turn. So he's down to 2 DCEs. Could technically go for puzzle and water energy and then discard water energy and draw into and like puzzle and set up the attack. But let's trade first. Let's check what options we have. Might also just retreat into Zoroark since he can't take a knockout possibly, right? It's 150, 170. No, he can only deal 200, so I will just mellow for. I won't mellow now. I don't even have to mellow. I can actually just. I will actually try to Ultra Ball and then use Zoroark to pick up Coco. And at least now I can discard water energy, so I can actually mellow for puzzle or use puzzle in general for water energy next turn maybe. But we'll just retreat the Coco, and I mean he can't really snipe unless he uses his own Coco. And I'd rather keep Zoroark for Zoroark, so let's just retreat. Field Blow is fine because he can't get back his tools and probably doesn't play more than 2 choice bands. So we're trying to get rid of as much resource of him as possible. If he has Kukui as well, then I'm gonna cry. But I mean, even if he has Kukui, he will definitely lose his second to last DCE next turn, so he only has like, I mean, he might play Special Charge of course, but judging from standard Zoropod builds, as much as I can judge standard Zoropod builds if I'm staring down a Golispot non-GX, but like in general. Should be able to almost get him out of DCs. And then, I mean, I can even, if I manage to draw into puzzle this turn, I can actually even heal my Zoroark and take the knockout with Glaceon, which would make it even tougher for him to do something. How many Guzmas do I have in my discard? 1, so it's fine to discard 1 more. Want to keep Mellow as long as possible. Yeah, now that's an easy trade. That's a very easy trade. Okay. Let's trade away the Layla. Okay, I actually get a puzzle, so this turn is gonna be pretty good. But let me check first what I want to puzzle back for. I definitely want to get the Aqua Patch back, that's for sure. And the second puzzle, I guess. It's a pretty fine target. So we just Aqua Patch. Then we Ace a Roller. Promote Coco first, just for proper order. Can even trade 1 more time. So what do we put the 30 damage on? Laurentis is entirely irrelevant now. So I will just go for this Zoroark, because then a Zoroark with Choice Band can easily take the knockout. So now he doesn't have access to trade and is down to his last DC. And still hasn't drawn a single prize card, so... I mean, Gullisport is still pretty annoying, the regular one. So I will definitely focus down his Wimpots. Which shouldn't be too hard with 4 Zoroarks in play next turn. So, yeah. Looks pretty good. Decides to promote his Lele, which doesn't matter at all because, as I said, best case I just get a Guzma. Have to keep an eye out for my cards left in deck though, because I'm running pretty low on cards and I still have to draw 5 prizes, which shouldn't be too tough considering how far ahead I am, but yeah, it's still something to keep in mind. But I get a Guzma, 1 puzzle just yet. No need to attach energies. Also no need to trade, because all these cards might be useful. Depending on what happens. And I'm, as I said, pretty low on cards. So I'm just gonna go for the Wimpot. Question is, what do we set up for the knockout? I mean, this Zoroark gets knocked out by basically anything with a choice band. So let's set up this guy for a GX knockout of Glaceon. Because now we should be able to just win in 2 Guzmas, and I still have 1 Guzma left and 2 puzzle, so and plenty of DCs. Also Lele is another possibility to just take out with Zoroark. But ideally, next turn I just Guzma up this guy, GX him, and then I have 2 targets I can possibly take out with Zoroark. But that should work out. So next turn I will probably... that's only 1 puzzle because he only has single puzzles left. So next turn I will just puzzle for 2 Guzmas and should be good from there. I mean, even if he... Yeah, that's what I was talking about. He has to heal now, so... It's fine, because as a... Oh... I might actually just go for this guy and snipe 30 here, and then... try to go for a double KO. Or do I even care that much about... Actually, I don't. I can still Guzma the Lele, and... even if I can't, I can just 2-shot the Zoroark, so I will still go for 2 Guzmas. So we don't want to trade, and we just Polar Spear. That just means if he can't heal his Lele, then I just win next turn. Even if he attaches 2 grass energies to his Zoroark now and attacks with it. Which may not even happen depending on what he draws. Yeah, now he... yeah. that's game. Just making sure. 130. Choice Band. DCE. Guzma Lele. And that's game. So I hope I gave you some nice expressions on how the deck works and how strong it is against Zoroark decks, because yeah, as you could see in both games, they just weren't able to trade anymore. So yeah, maybe you can try out the deck yourself. Maybe you'll also find it as yeah, as enjoyable as I did. And yeah, I will see you guys next time.